So good morning, Soulbridge Tribe. Thank you for spending the morning with me. I hope everyone's feeling luminous today. Today's topic is a sensitive one. It might as well be in a discussion about immigration. People get really closed-minded when their personal beliefs are at stake, and they end up believing things they don't want to believe or not believing things they should believe. I've seen comedians have fun with the subject of what would happen if we met aliens, and should they have passports, and do they need to be baptized, and should they go to church, and do they believe in God, and just ridiculous things. But it does bring up the notion that the general public really wants to know about actual aliens. And by the way, they don't call themselves aliens because the definition of an alien is someone who comes from somewhere else. And that could be anything else, right? So right now, while we're having political discussions about legal aliens, illegal aliens, fence jumping, whatever, let's try and call them extraterrestrials instead, which is partially correct, right? I was an ESL teacher for over a decade, and at that point, ESL was called English as a second language, but then I went to Morocco and found out a lot of people speak 3 languages. So it's not a second language, it could be a third language or a fourth language. So they kind of called it English language learners instead and made it ELL instead. So our terminology keeps shifting now, UFOs or UAPs. And we have to stay with those different changes, even though after a while they just kind of all run together. Let's talk about how old our civilization is and where we got things like numerology and astrology, because those are really ancient. Cavemen didn't do it. Cavemen were being nurtured right alongside the visiting ETs that were coming here from other planets and helping them along and nurturing civilizations and dropping hints, and then at some point just plain overseeing things for a while and creating government structures. And when they had come to visit, various groups would come to visit, and the earth was not very populated at the time. If you look at the story from Zecharia Sitchin with Enki and Enlil, the Lost Book of Enki should really help fill in the gaps there, because the first chapter, translated from Sumerian, which Zecharia Sitchin was such an expert in, said, "We crash landed on this planet." that was the opening statement. That's how it started. And they said from there they collected wild birds and tamed them. That would be our chickens and stuff. And then they collected the fish and farmed them. Then they collected and tested edible plants till they got enough to farm, and created plant farming because they needed to, with very advanced technologies on their ship, look into the structures of the plants to find out which ones are poisonous, which ones are sweet, which ones are acidic, what kind of recipes can they create with that, and basically sort of guide our civilization through, this is wheat, this is what we make with it, and teach people how to cook. Bread makers, growing tea for tea makers, growing coffee for coffee makers, establishing civilized food sources so that people weren't just hunting and gathering like the early cavemen were doing, and they were starving to death too. And they were out in the open air or living in caves. And really, we want to say that our people are backwards, but in fact, there were many levels of development, because these ETs came in at all their different levels with all their different genetics, and they contributed an awful lot to this planet. So what I'm trying to say is they were here with the dinosaurs. They were here from the get-go. Some of them saw the evolution of the planet and the seeding of the cavemen, and they're very, very old beings, wise, much older than Earth humans. And we can say that they seeded their DNA here, and so we are the ETs that we're looking for. Our DNA is mixed with theirs. They consider themselves our cousins. Let's talk about what happens if you actually meet an ET. Quite the subject, isn't it? If you meet an ET, depending on what species it is, please do not refer to them as creatures. They are people. They may be blue-skinned or gray-skinned. They may look different than you. They may or may not have any hair. They may be shorter or taller. They may even be scaly. They could be reptilians. Whatever they are, they're people. They're not creatures. Okay, so I don't know what you call a creature, like the creature from the Black Lagoon kind of thing, right? It's pretty much any life form that we don't know what it is, and so we label it creature. They're not creatures. They're intelligent, super intelligent, very advanced, technologically, intellectually, and they're worthy of respect. The other thing to remember about interacting with ETs is that they have a culture, they have families, they have customs, they have preferred foods, they have languages, although some of them are only telepathic and they don't actually have language anymore. Or they might have rudimentary language, or there might be teams of them that were sent here to learn all our languages. And the UFOs that we see over certain countries, and they're all different depending on which countries, kind of segmented out into which ones oversee what populations of Earth. And they've learned the languages and the customs of the people that they oversee. It's not a matter of waiting for ETs to come here and go, oh look, they've arrived. It's not a matter of scanning the skies for an attack, because they never had any intention of attack. There are groups from other planets who do come to visit, and it's kind of vacation. Let's pick up a stone, let's pick up a rock, let's invent something. And then I'm very certain that there are inventor species who are leaving new species here. Suddenly you see a lizard no one ever saw. Suddenly you see a bug or a butterfly that no one ever saw. Suddenly there's some kind of a worm that eats plastic. Well, that's interesting. We have an environmental savior on our hands. Some kind of a worm that eats plastic that no one ever knew about. Where'd that come from? Because these ETs are, let's just say they are invested in our planet. Like if they've helped us along, they've been coaxing us all this time, and then we get ourselves into a problem with all this plastic that's in the ocean. We can't figure it out, and they're letting it stagnate to the point where it starts to affect our oceans. They might come and volunteer to throw a couple of worms in there and start a species that eats trash. Why wouldn't they? I mean, they're very future-minded, long-term future-minded. So the other thing about these different species of ETs is that they look different, they come from different planets, they come from different solar systems, different galaxies, so they have evolved in different ways. Pleiadians look the closest to us. They're going to look European. They'll look a lot like me because my mother's from Holland. Zetas, those ones with the big almond-shaped eyes and the gray skin, definitely don't look very humanoid at all. And they're a super advanced race who got themselves into a sort of a pickle by eliminating sexual reproduction, because they have really big heads, right? That's hard to pass through a canal to give birth. And so having babies outside by test tubes and putting them in outside containers to grow them on their ships, that's one way to create a new population. But the other thing they were doing was cloning, which is causing the same DNA to be used over and over. And without the variation and without the constant exchange of new matter, it starts to break down for a while. So their civilization became sort of having an issue. And it put their whole civilization at risk. What do they do at that point? They make pre-life agreements with people who are coming into this lifespan and agree that they're going to be taking reproductive matter from them and doing harvesting and exchanges so that they can help their own people to create a hybrid that can integrate new DNA and become healthier for the longevity and the long-term reversal of extinction of their people. Does that make sense? Would you do the same thing for your people? If you were a scientist, if you were put in charge of helping your own people out of extinction, would you do that? So I think they created contracts with, I want to say Eisenhower, that they would come to the planet and they would be really non-obtrusive and really stealthy and block people's memories so they won't remember what was happening. And I think that they were doing that maybe through the 50s or 60s. In the 70s, I think it started to curtail because they had created the hybrids and they have them living on Earth and they're in underground areas and they're already here. In fact, they've already been already here. I can't emphasize that enough. So it's not a matter of ETs coming from elsewhere. They're already here, just like Mexican Americans look like Mexicans, and they're Americans, and they're already here, right? So those foreign alien types that you think that you're going to find, they're already here. They will not intermix with us. And there's a lot of reasons why. A couple of reasons why. One of them is that their ships are very magnetic. They have radiation around them. They have, I want to say, protective grids around them so that you can't even fire a missile at one. It will bounce off, and you'll see that in the news. Just recently, there is footage of a UFO that they tried to shoot a missile at, and it bounced off. They're not playing, right? They know that we have a hostile government. If they were to land at this point, well, people are still a little bit awkwardly uninformed and being informed inaccurately that these guys are hostile and out to get them. Of course, we're going to shoot missiles at them because we don't know what they are and we're not being properly informed. However, most of the population at this point is pretty aware of ETs. I mean, you see pictures of them just everywhere. And so it's not a matter of when they'll come, but how come they're not talking to us and what's holding them back. So with the Pleiadians, they're probably living amongst us. They've been taught, the hybrids have been taught fluency of our languages, how to get jobs, how to dress like us, how to decorate apartments, how to interact appropriately. They might be living next door to you. That quiet European guy who walks down the street all the time and then disappears into his house that you never see could be an ET because, even though you'll see him at the corner store, the guy that's cashing out your stuff who might have weirdly shaped eyes or he's extra tall. They blend in now. The hybrids blend in. And that would be for the Pleiadians, but for the Zetas, because they look so different with gray skin or brown skin or whitish skin like eggshell, because their skin colors don't look like ours, and their eyes, their big almond eyes would definitely give them away, and also big bulbous heads with no hair on top. They were hybridizing with humans. They were creating humanoid variations, but they still have bigger eyes, and they may or may not pass. Just like trans people ask, do I pass for a female? Zetas are asking, do I pass for a human? So they want to know if they pass for human. They actually have humans that they have come to the ships to teach them how to dress or how to act or how to blend in. They've been getting lessons on that. So the other thing that keeps them from blending in is that their vibration is very high. And they said that if you come in the aura of a human, the human will get a fight or flight response that they can't really help. Your hair stands up on your arms. You feel like you're in contact with something scary. Bashar's group of Essassani said they tried 3 separate times to make appointments to meet a human in an open location, right, in the daytime, something that shouldn't be freaky, but every time the human could feel that vibration coming toward them, it was overwhelming. So they did not stick around. What to do about that vibration difference? I don't know. I mean, the humans that are even working with the Essassani who are trained in reacting or not reacting or how to deal with that difference in the energy fields, that's still a problem. Maybe they'll have some kind of a suit they can wear to kind of reel that in a bit. Or maybe there's something that we put on, I don't know. or maybe we have to be in separate rooms looking at each other through glass. Whatever it takes, that's going to be our next step. Literally, that's what we're going to be working on. It might be the hybrids. Maybe that vibration won't be so strong with them. And it might be that they just eventually have like some ships touch down, and they're going to be on national television, invited by, hey, come out and say hi. But the problem is that people come out waving guns. And in some states, guns are very popular, and there's a lot of them. And people react with their guns. There was a news story, you've probably seen this, about a guy who got an Amazon delivery via a drone, and he said something was hovering at my front door and it wouldn't go away, and I looked out the door and it was still there, so I shot it. And he blew up a couple $1,000 worth of drone for Amazon because he didn't know what it was. This is not a guy delivering a package at his door. This is an alien creature hovering at his front door. It's territorial, the thing's on his property. That's the way he saw it. And that's the way people could see ETs, and that's why they might be a little hesitant to interact with your average person who still isn't even aware of what an Amazon drone is, let alone something visiting from another faraway location. The footage of ETs has been leaked through every means possible, through Star Wars, Star Trek, ET, every means to leak it into everyday footage and give examples of things so that you would not be so freaked out, so you could see, like in Star Trek, what common interaction with ETs actually looks like. That they can be intelligent, they can be gifted, they can be cordial and verbal, and Star Trek's a wonderful example because they're all working harmoniously together. And Star Trek came out, in the early 60s, and when it was first introduced, the concept was first introduced, the people who were writing the scripts said, we're not so sure this is going to fly. How's the public going to take that? But so many people who have already interacted either in a lucid dream state or in person with ETs had abductions, had dreams of abductions because they see it kind of in their dream state. They've had these experiences. They've seen these beings. They resonate with this information. They totally bought it. And it's over half our population now. So if 55% of our population has already had contact, then how far away is open contact? And I actually tried to hold a class at the public library to teach about ET cultures, and they turned down my proposal, not because I'm not educated enough, I have a doctorate, but because they still think it's a ludicrous topic, and they're not open to discussion. They still see it as sci-fi. They want to write it down as cartoonish and dismiss it. With that kind of mentality, you'll be the one outside shooting the Amazon drone down, because I think society is going to start stomping on people who are sticking their head in the blankets and being ostrich-like, right? And refusing to come to terms with something that's been all around us all this time. The other thing is awareness of cultural differences. Right now, we're at a dividing point with people who don't want illegal aliens jumping fences and running to our country and waving flags from their country because they're like, the people don't even respect being in America. They want to bring their country here and then do all their customs here. I totally understand that. And I understand that entry in some sort of a format that's expected and usual is got to be the key. And so just somebody dropping in to your bedroom and you see them hovering over you while you're sleeping can really be freaky. That's not expected. Even somebody walking outside, that's not how we do it. You're not gonna see a head pop up in a field and go, what is that thing looking outside my window, or what is that thing walking in my garden or in the field or over the fence. That kind of thing can freak people out too. And so the ETs have to deal with what is norm and what is expectation for a human, and what does human development look like in terms of shock value and our nervous system and what it takes to expose yourself to something gradually. And they've been doing this, and it's taken decades. So it is still in progress. For those of you who want ET contact, they know it. I mean, as I said in a previous video, they can read your energy signature, and they're telepathic. So they know what you're thinking. They know which ones are ready. They know the ones who won't freak out. But still, they're not going to just knock on your door like the sweepstakes and say, hey, you've won this sweepstake. You get to come out and, spend time on the UFO ship. Because the problem is, if you did that, you would just drop everything, right? Your reality would stop. You'd be going, it's not even the way it's supposed to be. It's probably always been like that. All that advanced technology they have, we want that too. We want it now. And then you become kind of disillusioned. You stop your life because you realize that the technology we have is archaic. Their medical equipment is so extremely advanced because it's all light-based and sound-based. Why can't we do that? Why can't we have that technology that we saw on Star Trek when that information was being leaked to our government? And the black hats and the Illuminati are busy, dividing up technology they find on crashed ships and keeping those advanced technologies for their own profit, for their own personal motivations. So it hasn't gotten out into the mainstream yet. Even med beds were supposed to be coming out by now, and they keep getting thwarted by people who want us sick because they're making profits off of it. And right now, even the industries that create candy are shuffling back and forth and trying to figure out what to do about SNAP benefits. Won't let you buy sugary goods anymore. So we're losing profits because no one's buying all our candies and sodas. Aluminum cans, aluminum exposure in the cans of soda being sold at schools, being given to people as part of their normal diet with SNAP benefits. Yes, the government is starting to kick back on that a little bit because obesity is an issue, and at an epidemic level, people are going into kidney dialysis and starting to lose their health. And that's got to be reeled back a little bit. Do ETs have part in that intervention? Yeah. Do they have the advanced technology could reverse it? Probably. But it's our lesson, our soul level lessons, our advancement, where we have to kind of figure it out on our own. If it's introduced to us too quickly, we can't absorb that information, and we will go into an emotional crisis. That's why the ETs who were doing the abductions tried to block the memories, because they said when we see the exposures to these different cultures and bring that information back with us, it does a number on your belief system and everything that you consider real. And so now you end up with people who are homesick and want to go back to the ships, and they liked being around those advanced species who are ultra intelligent and getting all their questions answered and finally getting to the bottom of what's going on. And yes, they can repair somebody's problem with their liver or problem with their reproductive organs or why they can't conceive. They've literally done this for people, but they're not going to replace our society, the level that we're excelling at, and they are participating in that process from the sidelines and dropping hints and sometimes plain old, like I said, dropping worms that eat plastic, dropping new species to help our planet to eradicate issues that it's having. And sometimes they've just downright gotten to the sky and blown up a missile. You can see UFOs coming after missiles and blowing them up before the missile touches down, because they don't want to see any more world wars. So they're helping from the sidelines to the effect that they're allowed. They're helping on the sidelines in the amount that they're allowed to help. Does that make sense? So I hope this clarified a couple of things. They have given us a lot. They've given us government, technologies, inspirations, safety, food sources and farming, early cultural methodologies. But there's a point where they had to back out and say, no, they have to do it on their own. They consider Earth to be a sacred place because it's a living library of DNA of many ET races. That's why we have all these different blood types and skin colors and hair types, because we are them. And when they come and land, what you're just going to see is more of us, right? Because all these different species of humans that we look like them. They call themselves our cousins. And it's not a matter of whether the Pope is going to come here and baptize our visitors. The visitors are very well aware of God and angelic intervention and higher level beings. They believe in angels and God also. And I don't even think this is the word believe, because, but it's not ET for or against. It's not God for or against. It's not angels. Gee, are there angels? It is just that there are advanced beings in dimensions higher than us. And then there's that ultra supreme light being, God, who created all of this. They give thanks for that. And they have gratitude, they have respect, they have intelligence, they have admiration, they have, in their own way, their own social systems, their own social governments, their own family systems. And if you have respect for that, if you can just reach out and say, tell me about you, how far did you come, where do your people originate, how long have you been here, what do you eat? I mean, ask real questions about sharing cultures and see what kind of answers you get. When you're on that level, when you're ready to just ask about mundane things like, do you guys like coffee? You know, can I make you a coffee? Just normal, human, everyday activities. You'd be surprised, right? Because if you ask a Chinese person, do you like coffee? They're gonna offer you some tea and go, this is what we drink. And then you learn something new, right? So I guess it's about tolerance. Tolerance for people who are different. And that's all I'm asking for, is that you keep growing, keep changing, keep allowing for yourself to understand things in a higher way, to become more luminous, more tolerant, more loving. And with that, my Soul Bridge family, we'll see you again in the next video.